couple more seats left in it. I like when they're small. See, omega-4 side.
It's 7 o'clock, you want to start?
Yes, thank you.
So I'll let you know.
I'm smiling so I don't get a goofy face. Waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. Oh, it's so nice and cool in here. I'm having hot flashes. Please don't record that part. It's okay, Mark. The world is not going to fall apart. Am I on? Okay. I just terribly upset my husband by talking while the roll is going. So for those of you who are joining us, that was my voice you heard while the planet Earth was rolling around. Welcome to our workshop tonight, August. This is August Monday night workshop. And I thank you all for joining us. A couple of things I want to catch up on is the schedule. Naturally, we have a satsang happening in 2 weeks. It's August 16th to the 19th. And for those of you who don't know, that's the program that we do on site. It's journaling, meditating, nonverbal. So you're on your own little place and working together. The satsang is a Sanskrit word which essentially means like-minded individuals coming together, conversing, and doing work together. So that's the premise of that whole idea. It's a much smaller group because everyone has to stay on site as well. And we take away your phones and your computers and everything. You literally are detached. And so we call it unplug to reconnect. It's probably one of my favorite ones that we do. So that starts in 2 weeks. There are a few seats still available there. And then, of course, September 21st to the 23rd is the last program that we'll be doing this year. It's an Omega-1. So if you know anybody that's interested in doing an Omega-1, or if you'd like to revisit doing an Omega-1, Dave, you're welcome to come back. You just go online and register for that. We're just starting to announce that one too. That's a little over a month away from now. And then of course we have our Wednesday night workshop, which will be August 22nd, and that topic is going to be contemplating our mortality. So I'm not going to be morbid, but it's going to be contemplating our mortality, which many great sages and teachers throughout the history of humanity have talked about the value of contemplating the end of our existence on this plane. That's only Facebook, so you only can join us on Facebook. Sorry, Fetter Day, get Facebook so you can watch us. We had an Omega grad who was like, I don't have Facebook, can't you just do everything on YouTube? I'm like, I'm working on it. Anyway, so that takes care of the announcements. Welcome. I already said that, so I wanted to just acknowledge our Omega-4 grad. We have an Omega-4 grad who finished the last Omega-4. Yay! And then, obviously, other people here who haven't been in a while. Yay! We have a couple people here who've been through the couples programs too, a couple couples, so that's nice as well. It's always good to have a collection. And then, oh yes, sorry, couples, yes. Husband. And Sue, when did you come through? It's been a long time, huh?
George was still alive.
So 10, 15, 20 years ago, maybe. Oh, I'm kidding. It's about 6 years?
Yeah, it started like 7 years ago and finished.
I came to the funeral.
Oh, the memorial service. Okay, awesome. All right, well, tonight's topic is called The Wizard of Oz of the 21st Century. Now, there's been great debates about social media, the positive and negative aspects of social media, and I saw this video the other day, a few weeks ago, excuse me, and it was really captivating. It was done very well, and that's one thing I really do like about the social media nowadays is everyone gets to be their own little film producer and director, and they put together little shorts, and some of them are really good. So this one gentleman, he was a motivational speaker, he put together this film. I believe it was based on a true story, where there was this young girl, she was in Snapchats and Instagram and Twitter and all these pictures of her smiling and laughing and being adventurous. There was a little video of her doing zip lining and skydiving, and really, you would look at her, think this is a very engaging individual. And the truth was that behind the scenes, she was very depressed, antisocial. If she wasn't out doing anything, she was in bed. And then they showed how, like, the picture of her smiling, first thing in the morning smiling, but it took like 100 takes to finally get the right one. And so that got me thinking about the idea of social media today, because it's so different than when we grew up. Most of us, young people here, are used to it, but most of us, we didn't grow up with the social media presence, and it really is a large part of society now. So in this video, the woman ended up committing suicide, drank herself and did some pills, and off she went because she couldn't cope. And so there's the idea that some people present an image on social media that's not true and it's not accurate. And then they try to live up to that image, and when they can't, often they end up taking their lives. My husband and I were just talking about this on the way up here, that there are a lot of, not a lot, but there are stories that we've read where people build a larger than life image in the social world, the social media world, and they can't live up to it and then end up taking their own life because it's too much for them. Now, suicide is a totally different topic, and I don't even want to go down the venue of suicide. That's something entirely different. But what I want to do is talk about the idea of the social media and our presence. What I was thinking about, of course, like I said, when I read this, my thought immediately went to The Wizard of Oz. Now, when I was a little girl, I remember The Wizard of Oz. Every year, we watch it for Thanksgiving. Always on, The Wizard of Oz. And when we're first introduced to the wizard, he's this floating head in this big, huge castle, and a booming voice, and fire, and sound, and whatnot. And the four characters are terrified. 3 or 4? The Scarecrow, the Tin Man. 4. Dorothy, Scarecrow, Tin Man, and the Lion. And they're all terrified. And he's commanding and disrespectful and blah, 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 and very not friendly. And then, of course, as the story unfolds and we end up discovering that the true wizard is the man behind the curtain, a fumbling little guy who accidentally kind of fell there. And so when you think about this, I was thinking about The Wizard of Oz, how much time, attention, energy, and money that guy put into the image of the floating head, and to keep everybody away so nobody would know the truth about him. And is that equivalent to today on social media? How much time do we spend on our presence? The Snapchats and the quick little texting, and when it first came about Twitter or Instagram, or I think it was Instagram was the first one, people taking pictures of food all the time. Here's what I'm eating. Here's a cake I made. Here's the street I live on. Like, okay. It was a little overboard, like snap, 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 snap. And then I remember when Snapchat first came on the scene, and I was first introduced, I forgot where I was, but it was a bunch of parents very concerned, because now you can send a picture that automatically gets deleted and you can't see who posted what, which could be very dangerous. The topic was about sex, like somebody could send a sexual content to your child and you don't know. So there was concern about that. I still think there's a little bit of concern, although I think Snapchat's really been doing a good job on monitoring and whatnot. But anyway, no pros or cons here. That's the thing. I want to make sure that I'm not presenting a pros or con. What I want to do is think about the idea of the energy that we spend on social media versus the energy that we spend on an internal, I can't even call it an internal media, maybe an internal presence. So our exterior presence and our interior presence. Now this, of course, isn't new. Forget social media. We can just have social norms. Growing up, peer pressure. So, there's the cool kids and the dorks. That's what we were called, the dorks. The cool kids, the dorks. Actually, I was the floater, so I got to go to all the different groups. So you had the floaters and the jocks. So you had your jocks, and then the deadhead. Well, in our school, it was called the deadheads. So the kids would all, the dead. We actually had a deadhead alley. Now, when I was growing up, you could smoke in school. 16 years old, you could smoke. So we had a courtyard inside of our high school, and you were allowed to smoke in the courtyard. You weren't allowed to smoke outside the building, but you were allowed to go into the courtyard to smoke. So in between classes, which is very funny, you have 10 minutes to get from one class to the next. It takes 7 minutes to smoke a cigarette. And do you know how many kids are going outside smoking cigarettes and then bolting to get to their class? So I had this one class, totally loved it. It was one of my favorite classes. I'm sidetracking, I know, but this is a funny story, so I'm going to tell you it. The class was called UFO and Psychic Phenomena. I am not kidding. It was offered once and only once my senior year, and it was an elective. Every kid in there, besides me, was a deadhead. I mean, these were the kids, they'd walk in, you could smell the pot on them as they were walking in. Now, pot at that time was not legal, and I still don't think it's legal in New York. But one of the funny things is the kids would go outside, because where the classroom was, it was right by one of the exit doors. They'd go outside, and when the bell rang, they would literally climb through the window because they didn't want to run around to come in with the possibility of being late. So we'd always watch the kids climbing through the windows. And it was by these two teachers, and I really loved these guys. And they were so funny. They'd be like, lock the windows, and they're running to the back to try to get the kids. It was very cute. And they didn't mind at all. But back then, that was the thing to do. Like, here's all in the gangs, they wore their leather jackets. At least when I was growing up, that was the cool thing. The gangs wore their leather jackets, and the jocks wore their Letterman jackets. So, everyone had their identity. And so really, you worked on keeping it up. So when I was in that class, I pretended I was a stoner because, that's what everybody else did. But even though I wasn't, but, hey, yeah, that's cool. You got a cigarette? Yeah, you talk goofy even, so you adapt to the culture that you're in. And then when I go to another class where there was a lot more cool kids, then I would kick into the jokester and be the comedian. Now, for those of you who've known me for a while, I do lots of different voices. So Gandhi was very famous in my high school. Gandhi would come and visit. So I do stupid things like that and just do the comedy thing. So again, being influenced or putting up an image isn't anything new. Every teenager goes through this. Every teenager goes through this. Unfortunately, today, it's not just the classroom that you're in. It's social media. It not only just stays in your class, it goes the entire school, neighborhood, state, country, world. I mean, that's how much is affected now. So think of that. When we're putting up an image on the social media, it would make sense to want to make sure that it's good before you post it because it's out. I mean, once it's up, and that's it. So I would understand the idea of wanting to portray an image. The question I have is, what about portraying an image that's not accurate? I mean, I know how many people lie when it comes to how much you weigh on your driver's license. I do, so I'm sure other people do. Our height, I might grow a little on my driver's license, my hair. Anyway, we're used to little lies for our perceptions, but what about the ones that are really big? That's the one I'm concerned about. So I remember when the millennials term first came out a few years ago, the millennials. And the way that the millennials were defined was a narcissistic society. And I thought about that. I was like, it really does make sense because they're constantly taking pictures. The selfie stick, isn't that funny? Who would have knew growing up, you take a stick and stick a phone to it and you make hundreds of thousands of dollars on selling a stick. Literally, that's what a selfie stick is a stick. So that you can take a picture of yourself far away because our arms don't reach that far. God forbid you ask somebody to actually take the picture. No, selfie stick. It's funny. That's the first thought. Somebody will run with my phone. I was in New York a couple of years ago. Mark and I were walking right outside of Central Park, and we were trying to take a picture. It was a beautiful scene, and he had taken me on a carriage ride, my first carriage ride ever, growing up in New York, and I didn't have one until I married a man from Arizona. Anyway, so we were trying to take a picture, and this guy walked up. He goes, "Hey, would you like me to take the picture?" And I'm not kidding. My first instinct was, he's going to run with my phone. And then I thought, no, I can't portray non-trust. So, oh, sure, thank you so much. And I hand it to him. And Mark goes, make sure he doesn't take your phone. Which made us laugh. And he didn't, naturally. He was very sweet. Because New Yorkers are genuinely nice people. We just have a bad rap. Anyway, so the idea of narcissism is, so here's what I want to do, give you a little history lesson. So narcissist is actually in Greek mythology. Does anybody remember the Greek mythology? Narcissist is the gentleman who fell in love with his reflection in the pool. He fell in love with his reflection in the pool. So just a little background, he was actually a hunter, and he was known for his beauty. Just known for his beauty. But apparently he was quite arrogant and very proud. And if somebody loved him, no, you're not good enough for me. I mean, and the way some of the stories go, that there are some people who actually committed suicide to prove their unrelenting devotion to him. I don't understand that logic, but apparently that's the myth. But what happened is that Nemesis is another god, noticed that his behavior was attracting, so he'd draw him to the pool to see his own reflection, and then Narcissus couldn't leave. And the concept is that he fell so deeply in love with the image, he actually starved to death because he didn't want to leave this image that he had. That's what Narcissus, or Narcissus, the Greek god, and that inevitably turned into narcissism, which is defined as the pursuit of gratification from vanity or egotistic admiration of one's own abilities. Now, it kind of sounds a little bit like ego in there as well, but it's really the gratification of vanity. So think about it. I get gratified because I'm vain, is really what it comes down to. Sigmund Freud actually introduced this in 1914. When it came to the idea of narcissist. So narcissism can be considered a social or a cultural problem, which I think is what, when people were identifying the millennials as narcissists, I think that's what some of the psychologists might be referring to, that we're having a generation now that is so invested in the way they look and so invested in that everyone see what they're doing, it's becoming quite narcissist and a little bit dangerous. I mean, how many times have you driven down the road, at least how I've driven down the road, and somebody's taking a picture of themselves driving, but they're looking at the camera instead of the road? There was a very funny video I saw the other day where a guy was videotaping a woman who was driving like this on her phone, and she was like this. So he's taking this camera of her not paying attention, and all of a sudden his car flipped over because he wasn't paying attention. Because he was busy taking a picture of her not paying attention. That's funny. We do funny things. But anyway, so it comes to the idea of how it's all about us. It's the self-importance. Now, why did this become so big? So in order for us to understand this, we have to back up and think about social media itself. Advertising, because that's really what social media first started out. Websites. Do you remember websites? You want to learn about a company? You go to the website. And the website had a place, and then websites actually evolved. You can register for things on websites. You can order things on websites. So websites became our way to not really have to leave. It was convenience. I didn't have to leave the house, and I can learn things. Websites, then, in order for them to be promoted, let's say you've got 5 websites promoting, I don't know, selfie sticks. They pay to get their website on top, to get the #1 hits, to get traffic led to them. I mean, there's so much that goes on, which is the birth of social media now. Google, Yahoo. You could pay Yahoo to bump your website up. So if somebody types in selfie sticks, your company is the first one that pops up. Because typically you go to the one that first shows up. So that's how it all started. Social media was actually tied to marketing. And the more you market, the more hits you make, the more product you get. So social marketing, social media became a very powerful marketing tool. Now, introduce the next generation. They're working for companies that are invested in social marketing. So here we are working for a company that's all about the social marketing. Do the push, do the push, do the push. So they're learning to market. So market. It's all about how many hits you get, how many thumbs up you get, how many likes you get. Does the customer leave, or are we attracting customers? I remember there was a great scene in the movie Anne Hathaway with Robert De Niro, The Intern. It came out a few years ago. It was an online clothing store. And it was all about the hits. So they're all sitting around this table watching as the customers, they opened up this page and, this one put that in the basket, this one left. So you actually can monitor the way people are interacting on your site. So it's all about the push. Social marketing is such a big marketing structure right now. I don't even know if a company could survive right now if they didn't have a social marketing presence, which is part of Omega's problem. We don't have a social marketing presence because that's not a big thing for me, but I will be calling Jen. I got your email. I will be calling you on that one. Look, I'm exposing myself. I don't read emails. They said that for social media, it's an integral part of our lives now, more than it ever has been. That in October of 2015, they did a study, and at that time, 90% of young Americans, children, people under the age of 16, 90% used social marketing. And then they said that in the research now, that 65% and older is the next surge. So it's the young kids. People who are working don't use it as much, but it's on the rise. And then the retired people, that's their connection as well. So, which is true. If you're older, and I was just mentioning this, my niece was traveling around the world. I get to watch with her, not having to be with her. But here's pictures of it, Australia, Ireland, Britain. I mean, I get to see that. So there's a benefit of that for people when we can't really stay in contact. Here we are, we're able to stay in contact. Then I was thinking about the different types of medias that are out there right now. So of course Facebook, that was the first one. Well, MySpace was actually the first one that came out. I actually don't know whatever happened to that. I don't think it's around anymore, but I think Facebook probably dominated the issue on that one. And of course, most people, if you don't know the story, Facebook actually started on college campus. It was a way for people to interact on campus to help each other out and whatnot, and then it exploded. And of course, now they're having all the issues with phishing that they were doing, and I don't mean phishing. Look, I used a term that I actually know what I was talking about, phishing. But they find out what your interests are, and of course, if you happen to search for selfie sticks, then all of a sudden you start getting all these ads for selfie sticks. That's what they do. They start releasing personal information. So Facebook's in a lot of trouble for that. Twitter actually is in trouble now too for influencing things. Twitter's actually been caught on a couple things. Anyway, so we have Facebook. Now this is the one that's actually known. It has 1.55 billion active monthly users. That's 1.55 billion users a month. That's amazing to me. So this one is more on a personal level. That's what Facebook is. It's really the personal level. Of course, the equivalent to that is LinkedIn, which is really company to company. So it's a far more professional. LinkedIn is you want to investigate about a company, or you want to publish something about your company, promote something about your company. That's mostly done on the LinkedIn one. Then of course the next one is Twitter, which is in the moment platform. So Facebook is, here's what's happening, long stories, write as long as you want. Twitter, you're limited to, I think it's 120, 150 characters, very short, and it's in the moment. Here's what's happening right now. So you do a tweet. Why is it tweet when it's called Twitter? It should be called a twit instead of tweet, but only twits use Twitter. Just kidding. Just kidding! I'm kidding! So Twitter is in the moment. Now get this. Twitter has 255 million active users. Now remember a couple years ago, Ellen DeGeneres was hosting the Oscars, I think it was, and they broke Twitter. They did a selfie with a selfie stick, but they had, she gathered a whole bunch of people, so Bradley Cooper and her and Angelina Jolie. There's a bunch of people, celebrities, that you usually don't get to see in one. And so they took a selfie, and she said to retweet it. And so many people were retweeting, they overloaded the circuits, and Twitter went down. So Ellen DeGeneres broke Twitter, which I think is great. Then of course the next one is Instagram. So this is a visual platform. With Instagram, it's the short little clips or pictures. So instant. Here's what's happening. So usually it's photos of things that are happening. The Vine was the one that was the 10-second videos, which was very popular. That's been replaced by, I don't remember the name of it now, but it's been replaced by something else. Then we have the newest ones are Google Plus, which I don't know anything about yet. YouTube, naturally, that's the videos, and that one, the videos can be as long as you want, and you have your own channel. So much like Facebook, where you have your own space, YouTube, you have your own channel, and here's where you post videos. It's all videos. So videos of, like, for example, this would be posted on our channel one day. And the book club will be posted on our channels as well. And then Pinterest, which I don't know much about, but I think it's a lot where you just post blogs, or not blogs, excuse me, like if somebody's interested in quilting or something, and it's everybody who, like the community of quilters, you can go to that. I really don't know much about it. I just know it's like a big thing. And then there's something called Foursquare, which I don't know anything about. And then, of course, the last thing, which is the newest one, is Snapchat. That's the newest one that's out. And that's the same one. Instant, here's what's happened, but it disappears. So you can't save it. So the draw for that is you could take as many pictures as you want. It's not going to take any memory on your phone. So that's the snaps. And I know they're expanding Snap now to where you could do videos. And they also have it to where, this is a little scary, but you could make it so that you could see who else in your community is around you. So if you're a stalker, and that's a nice thing for you to have. Just kidding. So I'm going to go back to the idea of the social media. So what happened is, in the industry, the social media was a marketing tool and communication. Like I said, you can order and you can make comments about, what did you think about this site? Oh, it was nice. And so your voice actually started getting heard. Facebook actually introduced that. People started flexing their Facebook internet muscles. People who are calm and quiet, all of a sudden, because they're on Facebook. There's no consequences. They could say whatever they want, argue, scream, that's stupid, you look ugly. I mean, the things people say is absolutely astonishing to me. I never read comments. I'm one of these people that I do not read comments. If I see somebody post something, I might put a comment, but I will never read what anybody else writes, because sometimes they're quite vile and rude and disrespectful. And I remember watching Sandra Bullock receiving an award talking about that she spent one time, she Googled herself, and for 45 minutes went through negative comments, she's too ugly, she shouldn't be there. And then I don't remember the actress's name. I think her name is Alyssa Jennings, the mom on Mom, the tall woman who won the, is it her name Alyssa? I don't remember. But she did a great interview where she talked about people told her she would never make it because she's too tall, she wasn't pretty enough, and she wasn't funny. And yet this woman has not won but 2 Oscars. She was on The West Wing, remember that?
Yeah.
She won an Oscar for a serious role, and now she's got an Oscar for, I think it's an Oscar or an Emmy, the TV, it's one of those. Emmy, she's an Emmy, and now for the funny role. So here's this woman who's very successful, but in the very beginning of her career, she was told, you're never gonna make it, don't even waste your time. Agents wouldn't even hire her because they don't want her. No, you're not, you'd be a waste of time. So I think that's wonderful to see. Now, for that aspect, when you read that interview, social media made a positive contribution. Look how many people will be encouraged when they read her story. So that's the positive, and then there's pros and cons when it comes to the social media. There's positive things, like a few years ago when someplace, I don't remember where it was, in the Middle East or something, when there was an upheaval and the country turned off the internet, and people hit Twitter, and they started saying, here's what's happening, and they started videotaping beatings that were going on by the government or the police. It went. So that helped. So it can be very helpful. Natural catastrophes, obviously, very helpful. We're over here, or taking images of what's actually happening can be very helpful. Warning signals, hey, tsunami's coming, or video. But so, there are pros and cons. The negative aspect of that is, naturally, we know this, people who spend hours on social media. So I actually went and looked up to find out the amount of time, the average amount of time somebody uses on the internet. And you know what I discovered? It's impossible to discover because they're connected to smartphones now. When it first came out, it was on the computer, so you could actually determine how long somebody was logged in on a certain page. Now they're on the phones. So you have access on your smartphone to the internet, to Twitter. Every single social media app has its own little app. So you don't even have to go to, remember when Facebook first came out, you had to go to Google, type in Facebook, and then that took you to Facebook? You don't do that anymore. Press the little Facebook icon, there you go. So it's difficult to determine how much a person is on social media. I do know a couple of years ago I did a workshop talking about how there's actually a couple of people instructing individuals online on how to stay online at work and not get caught. It was amazing, but it is. There's people out there who are teaching you, go on the social media. Because now, since everything's connected, you could be at your desk and, let me check my bank statement. Oh, let me book this vacation. Oh, here's a sale going on. Oh, there's an Italian feast. Let me get the tickets. There's my Groupon. I mean, it's very easy to get distracted when we're at work, and then, an hour will go by. And so I remember when the computers first came on the scene, solitaire was the issue. There wasn't any social media, but solitaire. Every computer had solitaire, and it was amazing how many people were getting caught playing solitaire on their computer at work, so much so that the companies had to start deleting it from the computers. There's no games. There's no game now. But then they started building their own networks, so you didn't have to buy a computer that already had the software on it. You built one and put whatever software you wanted on it. But there's always a way. But I remember the idea was, they said there was the average employee spent 1.25 hours a day playing solitaire, so that you were paying people to play a game. That was the big, why they wanted to change it. So back to the concept of is how can we tell how much is being paid on social media? We can't. It's amazing. You can't. You really can't, unless you do it yourself and monitor it. But it happens that quick. I actually tried to monitor myself during one day, and I got lost because I use it for GPS. Is that social media or not? Or, I'm looking to say, oh, here's a restaurant. What does this person say about this restaurant? So you Google and see, is Yelp, does it have a good rating or not? So it's become so much part of our lives, 5 seconds here, maybe 10 seconds there, maybe 20 minutes there. It's amazing how one leads to the next. I remember I never understood the concept of YouTube until I first watched it. Because YouTube, you have a little video and then suggested videos. Oh, I wonder what that's about. Oh, let me click here. Oh, there's another suggestion. Let me read that. Oh, that lady was really funny. Let me read her. An hour went by and I was like, whoa, holy mackerel, because some of them are quite interesting. And then you think, oh, I don't want to watch that. So you type in another one. Oh, yeah, I like that guy. Let me look. And before you know it, it's gone. It's amazing to me. As a matter of fact, that's one of the ways that I was introduced to Wayne Dyer. I watched some of his videos on YouTube. Oh, that was a good topic. Let me go to that one. And almost everything's on YouTube now. It's amazing to me. So, back to the idea of, in the beginning, I was talking about the illusion. So, the Wizard of Oz and the illusion. How do we know the person's persona on what we're reading is actually who they are? What do you think? How do you know? We don't. No? Unless you know them. Right, unless you know them, we really don't.
We don't instantly, but over time we get to know them.
Over time we get to know the person or the image. The image. So over time people got to know the Wizard of Oz as the floating head. Nobody knew it was the man until Toto. Yay, Toto. Nobody knew it until the dog pulled back the curtain, and that's when we found out who the real person was. So when it comes to who we really, the idea of who we're interacting, and the actual term is called IRL. It means in real life. Believe it or not, there's a term for it. You want to IRL? Meet in real life. So when you meet in real life, that's when you actually get to figure out who the person is. So Meetup is another place that a lot of individuals go, and I can understand this. Your friends have moved on, kids have moved out, you want to do something, you don't really know anybody, everybody's inside their homes. It's not like when I was growing up, kids, you get out of school, you change into your play clothes and you're out the door until you hear your name screaming for dinner or it's dark. That's it. We weren't inside, we weren't separated, we were engaging. Neighborhood, we had 20 kids. Everyone, you block tag, that was a big thing, block tag. You play block tag, the whole entire block, cut through people's yards, chase after dogs, climb trees. That's what you did. Nowadays, you get home, you're on the computer, or you're on your phone, or your tablet. It's such a disassociation. So I can understand Meetup. You're wanting to go out and go for bike rides or go hiking, and I've seen this. I've seen people actually have met up, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. There's always the risk. What if that person is a little weird, and sometimes there are little strange individuals, but you know what, there's strange people all the time anyway. So how do we know? So there really isn't a way to say, is my image true? There isn't. Now, I asked the question when I sent out the announcement for this is, what is our responsibility then? As a human being, what is my responsibility? Well, I know as a parent, I have a responsibility for my kids to make sure I'm guiding them the best I can. And there's some parents that don't want to take away because, oh, I don't want them to get upset, or they're more invested in being their friend instead of a parent. Well, I think we should be friends with our children, but parent first. So parent first, and then I'm your friend. But guidance, that's really the idea of what we want to do. And then, you know, naturally, investigate. If somebody friends you and you don't know who they are, check to see who their friends are. Check to see what their connections are. See if it's a scam. I mean, it takes a little bit of effort to do, but it's worth it. I mean, how many times have people been hacked? Or remember the, what is it called now? The new white-collar crime is identity theft. That's the white-collar crime. It's the new one. You know, they don't have to do anything. Just get onto your computer. How do they do that? They friend you. Once they friend you, they find out your birthday, your mother's maiden name, any other pet names, and you can get a password out of that, just minimal information. So it's amazing how much is out there and scary at the same time. Privacy acts are very different nowadays than when I was growing up. You never told anybody your phone number. Now it's like, don't let anybody know your Facebook page, or, you know. And I have on mine there's security. I had it where nobody could request, like you couldn't request me. The only way you were my friends if I asked you to be my friend. And this one client said to me, I tried to friend you on Facebook and it won't even let me. Why don't you want? And I'm like, oh, sorry. Let me friend you. But you know, it gets to be a little bit of a harder issue to see that. So the thing I was thinking about is when it comes to the idea of how do we know the image, well, I was thinking about, and there was an article that I read, and I actually did a lot of research for this one. There was an article in, where is this one at? Psychology Today is one that I like to read, but this was posted in May of 2018, May 7th of 2018. It actually was in the, I think it was Psychology Today. Anyway, he said over the past 5 years there has been a proliferation of studies assessing how excessive social media can impact us negatively on our health if we're excessive about it. So I actually typed in the question, addictions to social media. And the authorities say that really social addiction is not. There's not a lot of social addiction. There's habitual behavior. So there's a difference between a habit and an addiction. And so it went through the classifications of this is what it takes to be a habit, and this is what it takes to be an addiction. Addiction, you can't live without it. A habit, it's just something you do. The concern is to make sure the habit doesn't spill into an addiction, and it doesn't spill into other non-habitual things, like, of course, the texting while you're driving. Or the social norm now is sitting at a dinner table and you're on your phones. Have you ever gone to the restaurant? I remember the last time I was at a restaurant, the entire table, 6 people, all in one family on their phones. Nobody talking to each other. But they're all just like this. I was like, why are you even out? I mean, just order in. But anyway, that's me. Sorry, judgment. So what he said was that some of the negative effects that happen to us is naturally anxiety, depression, loneliness, attention deficit disorder, and addiction. These are things that can happen to us when there's an excessive use of social media. So not so much the fake image that we put on there, but the excessive use of it. And that's kind of where this started turning into, was there's really not much you can do about the image except investigate. You know, if you're with somebody and they're constantly selfie, 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 talk to them. How's it going? Do you have a job? How's your house? Talk to them and get to know them like actual IRL. Have a conversation with them. So they said because social media is frequently accessed via smartphones, the usage is intimately intertwined in their mobile nature, which contributes to excessive checking habits. So it's always on their phone, so they're always checking. And this is the label. It's called FOMO. Anybody know what it means? Fear of missing out. So it's constantly checking because you don't want to miss out on something. Now I have a pet peeve. I will tell you this. This is my pet peeve. I I get irritated when I'm having a conversation with somebody and they pull out their phone and they start scrolling through. What are you scrolling through for? And they're like this, talking to me like this. No, you're not. I will walk away from you. If you do that to me, I will walk away. You want me to walk away? Pull out your phone, and I will walk away. I stop talking. As soon as you pull out your phone, I will stop talking. And if I don't have your attention and you're off doing something, I walk away. Now, I know people pull out their phones because I recently had this. Somebody wanted to show me their vacation. Okay, got it. Oh, that's great. You're showing me the pictures. We're involved in a conversation, but not I'm talking to you and all of a sudden a text comes in. Oh, and then off you go. And no, not happening. That's a big issue for me. I'm the person when we sit down to eat, there are no phones at the table. No phones I don't care if an alert goes off, there's no phones at the table. If you're worried that you're missing something, then turn your phone off so you don't hear the alert, because there's no phones at the table when you eat with me. There's no phones. That's just me. Mark and I, that's what we do. No phones at the table. Now, I understand emergencies. Grandma's in the hospital. My aunt was just recently in the hospital. I get it. There's exceptions. There are always exceptions. I totally understand that. But when somebody lacks the ability to have a conversation unless the phone is in their hand, I think there's a problem. We should be doing more IRL. I'm going to use that now. Sorry. Anyway, that's the label. It's called the fear of missing out. So they said, in the study, they said the good news is that few people are actually addicted to social media. Most people aren't. It's a habit. And they have to be careful because they're checking social media while they're driving, or while they're out eating with their friends and family, or you're checking your phone during a movie. You see that a lot. All of a sudden a white screen will pop up behind you. You're like, hey. So they've got it where the alerts are turned off, but it doesn't stop the white screen from lighting up. So every once in a while, it's like fireflies in the middle of the night. A little light screen. So, you kind of have to, which I think that they should actually change the movie theater now to looking up instead of us looking down, because then we won't be distracted by the white lights anymore. We're looking up now. My own issue. So, the thing that they said, here's the things that you can do to check to see if you have an addiction towards social media. So these are 6 questions you can ask yourself. Do you spend a lot of time thinking about social media or planning to use social media? Now, this is aside from your job. And here's the other thing, too. It's amazing. People who do this for a living actually have a low interest in social media outside of work, because they're on it all day. They don't want to catch up, so which I find very fascinating. So anyway, do you spend a lot of time thinking about social media or planning to use social media? Aside from birthday parties, that's the other thing I'm very surprised about. Facebook now, you get invited to birthday parties through Facebook. Nobody picks up the phone and calls you and says, hey, we're having a party. It's and I actually didn't know about that for a while. There's that little tab on the side, the little invites, or now it has the little alarm thingy that dings and lets you know there's something that invited you to. But there would be times where, I'd find out about my granddaughter's birthday party 2 hours before. Aren't you coming? What? I sent you an invitation, huh? So think about people who aren't even on social media. All this people are, so nobody calls anymore either. My kids will do the same thing. Well, why don't you just call me? No, I'll just send you a text. You can call. No, I'll send you a text. Okay. Like nobody wants to have the actual conversation. Sorry. That was very judgmental. I apologize. My experience has been that people would rather text than talk. Do you feel the urge? Number 2, do you feel urges to use social media more and more? Like, are you starting to get wrapped up into it? Do you use social media to forget about personal problems? Now, I was aware of this. I actually use games instead of social media. So not so much solitaire, but words with friends. I kind of justify it because I'm using my brain. You have to think. And then you do develop relationships. Like I have this one guy in New York, he cracks me up. I kick his butt all the time and he still plays with me. I'm like, that's great. And I'll send him a little message because you said, I found out you can message them. So I sent him a little message it's like Scrabble, but it's words with friends. And he always sets me up for the triple word. I'm like, dude, you just set me up again. You just gave me another 150 points. Stop it. And so you actually can develop relationships with people, which I think is good, and because I don't want to deal with what's going on, so I'm off playing words with friends. That's my default now. It's the words with friends. And there have been times when I catch myself, I'm not being able to fall asleep, pick up the phone. I'm on the phone again because I can't sleep because menopause, so delightful. So, well, the phone's right here, let me just get the phone, and then off we go. I find that there are times where I actually, I'm not interested anymore. I don't want to think anymore, and so I'll put it down, or I'll just go through Facebook and I find myself just kind of going and looking for a photo that looks nice. I don't read stories anymore, I just look for photos now. So I like the memes, messages. I think pictures with messages are nice, but that's kind of dropped out. Anyway, I'm sidetracked. So, using social media to forget about personal problems. Do you often try to reduce your use of social media without success? So, I'm going to limit myself, and that goes out the window, much like my diet. Do you become restless? Nobody laughed at that one. Do you become restless or trouble? Thank you. Do you become restless or troubled if you're unable to use social media, which I have experienced? Family members, I can't get a signal, I can't get a signal. Okay, it's okay. Nothing than the 5 minutes, I think we'll be okay. I don't want to go camping because there's no signal. Okay, we can go outside and hide. No. Okay. I remember this time. A couple years ago, we took the kids over to San Diego, and I purposely did not pay for the Wi-Fi. Purposely. Yeah. Try to have 3 teenagers. It rained the first 2 days. 3 teenagers in a hotel room with no Wi-Fi. I gave in. I had to. I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, you are driving. This is a vacation. It's not. It really was quite horrible. And I was like, oh my. They made it miserable. It was your fault. Just kidding. But I did. I tried to do it. So, we have a game. We have game night, at least an hour. You have to have at least an hour. Just play a game with me. Are we over? Can we get on the phones now? Really? We just started. And they're playing the game to get it as fast as they can, which has changed now. We actually do like game night. Our latest one is Speak Out. Have you played this one? Oh, you put this contraption in your mouth and hear that, and then you have to talk. And you can't make words because this thing is in your mouth. Oh, the other day we were playing, my son had drool that's hanging out of his mouth. It's hysterical. If you haven't played this game, you have to play this game. So with game night, that's one of the things. Anyway, so if you're unable to use social media, is there a panic? And then do you use social media so much that it has a negative impact on your job or on your studies? So you don't get the reports done, or you're not passing your test because you're too busy doing this and that. Now, I know when I was in college, it wasn't the social media. It was, that's when VHSs first came out. So we can rent a video and watch Blockbuster. That's what we did in college. You rented the video, and that's your video. So I'm sure we invented binge watching before it actually became a thing. But anyway, so those are the questions to ask yourself. I interrupted, so I'll go through the 6 real quick. Do you spend a lot of time thinking about social media or planning to use social media? Do you feel urges to use social media more and more? Do you use social media to forget about personal problems? Do you often try to reduce your use of social media without success? Do you become restless or troubled if you're unable to use social media? And do you use social media so much so that it has a negative impact on your job or studies? So the idea is, if you answered yes to those, you are leaning towards an addiction. And so they suggested that you do a digital detox, which I really love. And that's what satsang really is. For those of you who haven't had satsang, you've done satsang. That's what it is. It's really a beautiful place to just disconnect. A lot like the Vipassana seminars or the Vipassana meditations, if you've ever heard of these. The one that I did was a 10-day. It's a non-verbal meditation. And you meditate for 14 hours a day. Well, you're up for 14 hours a day. You get up at 4 in the morning and you go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, and you meditate. So there's 3 group meditations, and then you're on your own meditating. You get lunch and breakfast and lunch and dinner all provided. It's all vegetarian too. So the one that I did was at Joshua Tree in California. 10 days of not speaking, no connection to the internet, no phone. As a matter of fact, you're not supposed to bring any books, no writing utensils. All you do is practice meditating. At first, it took me 3 days because by the 3rd day, I was ready to leave. I was going nuts. Oh my God. And then I finally settled into it, and then I actually quite enjoyed it and didn't want to leave. So they had them where they're 10 days, and I know there's a 30-day one where you can go for a whole month. Can you imagine that? A whole month. But Deepak Chopra, from what I understand, he actually does this 3 times a year. 10 days where you just go off and meditate. I highly recommend it. I think it's a great way just to disconnect. And so much so that couples, they come together Women stay on one side of the campus and men stay on the other. And the only time you see each other is when you come together for a group meditation 3 times a day. That's it. And then you don't even get to spend the night with your significant other. You literally are on your own. So instances like that, like digital detox, I think are very beneficial for us. And I have a feeling that's going to be something that's going to become more prevalent as social media takes more of a connection into our lives. I think it's going to be the, hey, get away, vacations, no Wi-Fi is going to be the new announcement. So anyway, the digital detox. I found this very fascinating. There are some restaurants now that are actually giving discount on food bills if you refrain from using your smartphone during your meal. I think that's great. It didn't say who the restaurants were, but it just said in this article that there are places that are actually, so there's workplaces that are prohibiting phones, classrooms, most classrooms prohibit the smartphones. Some schools are actually giving kids tablets to work on now so that they don't get their phone, and the tablets are limited access. Like you can't go off and everything, which I think is a great idea. So there's things that you can do to start doing the digital detoxing. So here's 7 ways that I wanted to make sure I get these in here. 7 ways. Number 1, turn off your notifications. It's amazing. Most of the time when you download a new app, it'll actually ask, do you want to push notices? And most people just hit yes, they don't care. And then all of a sudden you're getting alerts and banners for something that all the time. Here, somebody just posted this about this. Somebody just posted this about that. Constantly. Turn off your notifications. Just turn on the notifications for things that you want to get a notification for. Like if you're, like weather. I have the Weather Channel. It gives me a notification now. Storm warning, a dust wind blowing coming. The other day when we had that huge storm, I kept getting notices, which I think is very beneficial. I'm okay with that. But I don't need to know every time somebody posted something to Twitter. It's too much for me, so I don't do that. So turning off your notifications, it actually allows you not to be disturbed when you have a normal routine. So if you're in the middle of doing something, you're not disturbed. Because what happens is, and I talked about this, I think I talked about it in the last workshop, where I'll go in and do my meditation in my morning. I have a meditation room and stuff. I'll sit down, and then I'll turn on my phone because I've got tea that's brewing for 20 minutes. So I'll turn on my timer, and as I turn on my timer, a little notification will come in. Oh, what was that? Oh, yes. Oh, I'm looking for that email, and off I go. And 20 minutes later, my alarm goes off, and I haven't done anything yet because I'm then on the phone. I mean, so notifications is what really captures my attention. That's why I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. Because here's the thing, the FOMO gets involved. What am I missing out on? Oh, somebody did something, what? And so it actually breaks Squirrel. Remember that movie, Squirrel? It breaks our concentration because something got our attention. So I'm doing something and an alarm, who said something? So it's amazing how many times, I tried to track myself, how many times I got distracted by a notification. I tried to track and I couldn't because I really was. Even when you're driving, I actually like the new thing that they came out about 6 months ago, the driving notification that I actually have mine on. If you're driving, so if your phone is with you and you're in the car going more than I think 10 miles an hour, somebody texts you, you'll get a notice that says, I'm driving and not available to receive. And they'll get that message, so they stop trying to text you. And then if they really need to get you, they'll just say, it says type in important, and then it'll come through, which I've had that happen a couple times. But I love that. So I'm driving, you can't get a hold of me. Because I'll do that. I actually used to have it where I'd have it on a preset, I'm driving, so somebody will text me or call and I'll just hit the button, I'm driving. Now I don't have to do that anymore. It just instantly does it for me. I feel like it's safer, especially when I'm driving or if I'm in a meeting. I don't want to be bothered, so you just turn that notification on. So turn your notifications off, and then give yourself time to when you'll go check the social media. So number 2, limit your time. So set a timer on your watch or phone to limit the amount of time that you spend on social media. And to this one, I would actually also add what hour of the day. Like say you're going to check between 10 and 10:30. If you have lunch break, maybe on your lunch break you'll go check. And limit yourself to just those times, maybe an hour when you get home. So I know a lot of parents deal with that too, limiting screen time. An article that I read, Bill Gates, his daughter gets 1 hour of screen time a day. Bill Gates' daughter, anything she wants, 1 hour of screen time a day, that's it. Just 1 hour. And I believe hers is just video games, so they don't count reading on a tablet, that's not counted as screen time. So in our house, we limit screen time to video games and YouTubing. But if you're like out in TV watching as a family a movie, we don't count that as screen time because it's your socially, we consider the screen time when you're by yourself and you're just absorbed into that. So you limit yourself and you set a time schedule of when you'll do it. Number 3, this is funny. Now this is from the article of Psychology Today. Number 3, third recommendation, get a hobby. But it's true. I mean, how many kids today don't really have hobbies because there's, nothing to do. I'm so happy school's starting. I'm so tired of hearing I'm bored. School, thank you. But get a hobby. So the more free time that you have on your hands, because you're going to cut down your social usage, you're going to need to fill it with a hobby. Otherwise, you're going to get depressed. So do something. Pick up a hobby. Find something to do. Of course, it's too hot out here, but Arizona is a great state to be outside most of the year. So when it cools off, go for a bike ride, play basketball, go for a walk around the block, walk with your spouse. I mean, there's so many things that we can do. Swimming. Start a hobby and something that you can do, and you'll be surprised yourself. I mean, what's the big one that a lot of women do? Unfortunately, a lot of women do it. Photographs, and you cut frames around it and put it in binders. What's that called? Scrapbooking, thank you. That's a hobby, that's something to do, scrapbooking. So finding yourself a hobby, gives yourself something for social media to be off of, and then, take a picture and post it on social media when you're done, but not while you're doing it. So get yourself a a hobby. Number 4, so a hobby can't do anything with social media. So a hobby can't be that you're going to make a YouTube video. That's social media hobby. Number 4, spend more time with your loved ones. Surprise! In real life. Have a conversation. Talk to them. So game nights, like I really recommend game nights. I think it's we do game nights. Every Tuesday night's our game night. So instead of interacting with your family on the screen, interact. I remember the one time I had picked up my granddaughter she must have been in junior high. She's on the phone talking, so I see her talking and then she's texting. I'm like, honey, who are you texting? She was texting the kid she was talking to, her boyfriend. Why are you texting him if you're on the phone talking? Because I want to ask him something and I know he's not going to answer it in public because he was around a group of people. I was like, oh my gosh. But sometimes that's what people do. I just did this the other day when I was with my daughter. Hey, honey, you want to leave? Yeah. Okay, let's go. Because you don't want to interrupt. So just a quick look. I found myself doing it. It's very easy and convenient. I don't want to bother anybody. Hey, honey, let's go. Okay. And that's it. We're out the door. So spend more quality time with your family. Number 5, make it a treat. So when you look at social media as a treat, kind of like instead of buying coffee every day or getting your nails done, I'm going to go do social media. Like make it be a special thing. Instead of just catching up, it's like a treat for you to do that. So if you think of social media in the same way, allow yourself screen time when you've achieved something like a reward. I get an extra hour because I did X, Y, and Z. I cleaned the house earlier, so I'll get an extra half an hour. Like give yourself a reward for that as a treat. Number 6, I've already mentioned this, meet people in real life, IRL. So get to know people, join a club, attend a talk, an organization. Volunteering is humongous. It's a wonderful thing to do. Interacting with individuals. I can't tell you the last time I went to a place where people are volunteering and the kids are on their phones. Volunteer without being on your phone is the idea. And then number 7, they said go cold turkey. If you really think that you have an addiction, go cold turkey. If you're spending more time on social media than you're interacting with people, if you spend more time on social media, as I'm looking at Facebook viewers, not learning something, just, if you're spending more time with social media than in real life, then you have to make a change. Then that's an addiction. You should have more time with individuals rather than screen time. That would be, if you don't have that, then that's an indication that there is something wrong. So the world is literally your oyster, so don't get trapped up in a virtual world. That's what it says. Get out from behind your screen and go enjoy the adventures instead of reading about the adventures. That's the idea. So then tie this back now to what my original statement was of The Wizard of Oz. So we have the illusion that the more hits I get, the more popular I am. The more likes I get, the more popular I am. The more people who view me, the more popular I am. And unfortunately, it's true. In today's society, there are a number of musicians who are famous because of YouTube and because of Twitter. There are a number of bloggers that have followers. I mean, the Twitters that have over 1 million people following them, they get paid. They actually get paid. I actually saw an article where a video of a family, a husband and wife, quit their jobs because they had twin sons, and what they did is they started recording their sons playing with toys and recommended, here's a toy you might got to get for Christmas, don't get this one, it's not good. The toy companies actually started hiring them to use their toys. So they stopped working, and their entire job is making videos and posting them on YouTube for people on whether or not the kid. Now, my thought was, well, when those kids turn into teenagers, what are you going to do? What to do for your teenagers? I don't know. But that's been a big thing. So it requires an adjustment in our thinking for older people, because social media really is. It does make an impact. Lots of people make money from how many times they get the likes and the dislikes and how much of a presence they have there. If I remember this correctly, if you're on YouTube, I think it's YouTube, if you have more than is it 1 million? If you reach 1 million, you can start charging for people to visit your site, and you get paid for people to come and visit your site. So you actually can make money on social media. That's the draw. So it's not that I'm saying you shouldn't be on social media, it's the age. I mean, it really is the age. But to be careful that you don't make it be all about the image, like the floating head, and that there should be some substance there, and far more interaction with people than with just the screen. In conclusion, I wanted to go to the movie WALL-E. Do you remember the movie WALL-E? I loved that movie. Little cartoon, poor little, was it animated? It was an animated one, right? So this poor little computer dude left on Earth because trash, everybody left him, and he finds another robot and falls in love, and on the ship, people are like, can't walk or anything because computers do everything for them, and they're like literally at the screen everywhere they go. The screen's in front of them. They're talking to the person next to them, but they're on the screen. That is like an introduction to where we're headed, I think, if something doesn't change on that. So that would be, hello fly, that would be our, I'm not losing my mind. There's a fly here. That would be my suggestion again. So the Wizard of Oz of the 21st century isn't going to go away. It's our diligence to make sure that we're clear about the people that we interact with, and make sure that we don't spend more time on the screen than we do existing in real life. That would be our responsibility, existing in real life, IRL. That's going to be my sign-off phrase now. IRL. See you, IRL. All right, I'll see you in 2 weeks on Facebook. Thank you, everyone. Good night.